Yes, hi everyone, good morning, buenos dias. Thank you all for your patience. We're running a little late, obviously, this morning. Again, I'm Danny Nierenberg. I'd like to welcome you all to our session, which will focus on the policy tools and measures mayors and local governments need to ensure sustainable, healthy, and resilient food infrastructure in their cities and towns. And I'm really excited because we have experts from across Europe, Asia, and South America in person and joining online. So this will be a hybrid event, so you'll have to switch from watching these folks to watching the screen. There is also, the organizers have wanted me to tell you about a poll that they've organized that you can download from the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact app. And you can answer the questions there, and then we'll display them at the end of the session. So please go there and answer those questions, and we'll come back to them later. This session has been organized by ICLEI, which is Local Governments for Sustainability, and the session will highlight a wide range of examples of local governments using their food infrastructure to promote a local food system transformation. And I think that's the key word here today, transformation. Peter Defranceschi is the head of ICLEI's Brussels office and the global coordinator for their global food program, and he will be your chair for this event, and I expect him to pop up soon. And I also want to thank his colleagues, Jiwan Lee and Gabriela Weidel, for all of their hard work. So I will turn it over to Peter. Thank you so much, Peter. And hopefully he'll join.
Very welcome to everyone in Barcelona and online this session on food infrastructure to feed cities. I'm really excited for two reasons. On one hand, I find it a crucial question on how mayors and local governments can really ensure and promote a sustainable, healthy food infrastructure and landscape in their cities and towns. How far does their mandate really go? What measures can they really set up in the legal framework, in the regulation they have, in the setting they are at the government level? And second, we really have some very inspiring good practice examples here and speakers in the sessions. But what is food infrastructure? I said that my private one here, you see, that you say, well, he's talking about good food, but eating cheap schnitzel. No, I'm prepared. But really, what is infrastructure? Well, it's about production, processing, storage, distribution, retailing. It's the whole cycle, right, from farm to fork. But it's also about the multi-stakeholders, the people, the human infrastructure, in a way. And just to conclude, it's also exciting for me because we did, in the frame of the UN Food System Summit, a big survey in around 30 cities where we did food dialogues together in partnership with FAO. And with around 1,000 participants, we did a survey, and one question was, what do you think is the biggest challenge in urban food systems? And on the top of the list came food infrastructure. So here we are, and I'm very glad to co-organize here these sessions with my colleagues, Gabriela, and especially Jiwon Lee, also from the ICLEI World Secretariat. Now, in order to warm up, we prepared a little poll, and as was said before, you can find the poll in the online and on site. I hope you find it somewhere. And this is 3 questions. The first question is, how do you rate the food infrastructure in your city in terms of access to healthy, sustainable, and accessible food within a short food supply chain? So 5 is the best, 1 is the worst. How do you view the food infrastructure in your city in terms of access to healthy, sustainable, and accessible food? And I read them all, the 3, so you can answer one after the other. And the second question is, do you think your city really has the power and mandate to transition to healthier and more sustainable food environments and infrastructure.
Peter, just one moment. People are having trouble finding the poll. So if they go to the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact app, if you go to the App Store on your smartphone, it's not available. So Peter, maybe you can describe where people can find it because folks are having a hard time.
Yes. Then I ask my colleagues, Gabriela and Giovanni, if you can include the link to the poll in the chat.
Thank you, Peter. Please
That's
continue,
awesome.
Peter.
Yeah,
Oh, now it's working, they say, Peter.
wonderful. I know there's always hope, and
Thank
eventually
you,
it all
thank
works
you.
out.
Thank you. All right, go
Yes.
ahead, Peter. Thanks so much.
The second question is, yes, about the power and mandate. So do you really think, okay, it's a nice idea, a healthy, sustainable food infrastructure, but hey, local governments, mayors, they don't really have so much power, so much mandate? So answer this from your background, from the city where you are. And then the third question, what kind of food infrastructure would you like to see in your city? There again, you have a few options: farmers markets, urban food production, cooling and storage facilities, packing facilities, local waste hubs, or kitchen hubs. So just make your choice. Let's wait a bit of time.
So we can see the answers? Yeah, that would be great. Everyone's furiously typing, Peter.
Yes. I'm seeing also here so you see the results displayed? I give you a bit of time.
Just maybe a few more seconds, Peter, because we're running behind time.
Okay, Jen, a few seconds. Not too much suspense, after all. Okay, then. I don't know what exactly you see, but I tell you what I see from the two different polls. That in terms of the first question, how do you rate the infrastructure in your cities? It's basically in one poll, it's more than 50% say medium, so not amazing and not very bad. And in the other poll, it's around good to very good. Then about the second question, do you think the cities really have the power and mandate to transition to a healthier and more sustainable food environments and infrastructure? There, it's very clear, 70% in both online and on-site polls say yes. They think their city, their local government, mayor, they have the power and mandate. So no excuses there from local governments and mayors and whoever's in charge. And then finally, what kind of food infrastructure would you like to see in your city? There I see in one poll, and forgive me, I don't know if it's the on-site or the online, that's the exciting challenge here. I see that the local food waste hubs, no, in one poll, the kitchen hubs is really 50%. Wow, that's really high. So
amazing.
50% would like to see kitchen hubs, which means like more, community kitchens established in their cities. Second is local food waste hubs, like we have, for instance, in Milan. And let me see in the other poll. There it's interesting. There it's like 50%. It's more about farmers markets and urban food production. So quite a mix. Well, I stop there since we also started a bit later. I thank you for filling in the poll, and I pass back to you.
Thanks so much, Peter. And I think what's clear from that poll is that cities really do have the power to change the infrastructure and make it better, and that's really exciting to me. And so even though there's a lot of work to be done, the power is there, and that's really half the battle. So thank you so much, Peter. It was nice to see you, and I'm sure we'll come back to you later. Before I continue, I just, again, want to thank you all for being here, participating in the panel, and being really active participants. I'm going to introduce our panelists in a moment, but as Peter said before, this is really a session where we will highlight hands-on, first-hand examples of cities across the globe that show how good food infrastructure can lead local food system transformation. As I said before, transformation is the key here. And so I'm going to introduce everyone very quickly, and then we'll go to them individually, and they will give short speeches. So first we have Richard McCarthy, who represents the World Farmers Market Coalition, Slow Food International, and Think Like Pirates. So it's great to have Richard here. We have Montserrat Ballerín, I'm so sorry, Montserrat, the consular at the Barcelona City Council, who heads market and trade. Andrea Magarini, the coordinator of the Milan Food Policy at the Milan City Council. Hank Retting, a researcher on urban food systems at Aries University in the Netherlands, and he'll be presenting alongside Frucje Edema, the food manager at Ede Municipality in the Netherlands. We have Nicholas Yu, the executive director of Guangxiao Municipality in China, and Hugo Rauhas, the deputy director of food supply at the Secretary of Economic Development in the city of Bogota. So again, some of the speakers are here with us, some are online, so just be patient as we get them online. And then I want them to all sort of go through their presentations concisely so that we have a lot of time for Q&A and discussion. So Richard, I'm hoping you're online, and I want to start with you. You have been an incredible friend to me and to Food Tank, my organization, because you have such a wonderful background working with Slow Food International and Slow Food USA, obviously, with FAO, and farmers markets around the globe now with the Farmers Markets Coalition, the World Farmers Market Coalition. So I'm really looking forward to your thoughts on what's needed around infrastructure in cities.
Danny, thank you so much for that introduction, and hopefully I am successful in sharing my screen. I'm confident that I have done that, but if not, please let me know and I'll do the magic again.
Don't see it yet.
Don't see it yet.
Maybe the technical folks can help us. Richard, I'm just looking to the back of the room for assistance. They say it's coming
I see it.
Great.
I see it now.
Great.
I see it now. Great. Thank you, Danny, and thank you for letting me join you this morning. I am here to maybe make a compelling case for some of the softer infrastructure investments that are needed. Very often we get very bogged down into the larger, heavy brick and mortar infrastructure. And often lose sight of what is lighter, leaner, and often congregating beneath the tents, umbrellas, and canopies that cultivate both commerce and community, as we see in the public markets. And I want to share with you, two collaboratives, international collaboratives, that I think really provide a compelling case for investing in public markets. The Market Cities Initiative, which is a collaborative of Project for Public Spaces, of Slow Food International, and really embraces the idea of a municipal strategy that looks at the markets as an ecosystem. Very often in cities, municipal administrations cannot identify what markets there are. Are often lost between the built structure markets, the informal, the street markets, and what we've identified are 7 principles of what looks like a market city, in which we begin to measure markets, we invest in them, and we begin to see them not as competing elements, but actually part of one ecosystem that refers to really, I think, the important rise of territorial governance of food, and in particular, the role of municipalities that can play in this. Now, of course, as you may imagine, one of the sources of influence for this market cities approach has been the municipal wisdom in Barcelona, which has invested heavily in its system of markets. But it is a system. And it's a system that shares public goals. And which of the sort of the different bottom lines of success that we refer to, the public assembly of independent competing vendors in a public setting is what delivers that public good. It asks of the management a particular approach that yields people feeling like they belong, the important social cohesion, the dignity of grassroots economic development, and places where people and businesses flourish. An example of the kinds of public wisdom that goes into public markets is, here is a photograph of the French market in New Orleans, which last week provided vaccinations inside the public market. So again, nothing to do with food, but everything to do with serving the public goals, the public good. Now, beneath the rubric of public markets, probably the lightest and most dynamic and surprising revival has been around farmers markets. And though they may have initially reemerged in North America as independent civil society markets that are often badgered for being very small, sideline players, in actual fact, I think they're the leading edge of the sword, that they very often provide an indication about as to the depth and sophistication and capacity of small farmers, as well as the ability of the municipality to welcome in small farmers into the coalition that it takes to create sustainable food systems. This has now emerged as a global community of primarily civil society farmers markets being led by Italy's Campagna Amica, and this is just formed really within the wake of the UN Sustainable Food Summit. And it really centers around this belief that when managed, markets are successful in aggregating the interests of and serving farmers, consumers, shoppers, and the community. And it's when these three elements come together as a farmer's market triple bottom line, we begin to see some extraordinary things happen. And I think some of the most extraordinary things we saw happen during the pandemic is that markets were, on the outset, deemed as special events that were not essential. And market leadership moved very quickly to deem the markets themselves as essential, therefore able to operate during times of crisis, and have demonstrated an extraordinary agility. And I think this is an agility that's woven into the markets themselves because they tend to be outdoors beneath tents and umbrellas. They are able to expand as the season demands and contract as seasons wane. And this element of being able to expand and contract really served them well to respond to the need for social distancing. We saw the unexpected rise of new farmers markets in Bangladesh because people were looking for simple institutions that they could trust. And therefore, markets broke out into the streets, were able to expand to make them safer public spaces. Now, in places where automobiles, reign supreme, say in North America, we also saw markets respond very creatively by creating drive-through markets. So there was pre-ordered online boxes of goods that were then picked up in vehicles. This led also to delivery mechanisms. So rather than looking at the markets as one spoke of the food infrastructure, you began to see elements of the food infrastructure of delivery, of pickup, sort of where CSA meets farmers markets, all beginning to weave into one element because of the agility of the leadership in the market, an adaptive leadership, which should be a reminder that the markets themselves are not ad hoc, informal. They may appear so, but they're actually managed. And they're managed almost as if they're fair trade zones where rules and regulations are defended and managed very carefully, whether this is food handling, temperature controls, the sort of logistics that ensure a safe marketplace. But it's this very same level of management that I would suggest we invest in, because they've also demonstrated an incredible knack at recognizing how to exact behavior change among producers and consumers, of how to initiate programs that speak to issues far wider than just direct marketing. And an example of this would be the role between the public procurement in schools and the role of farmers markets, which often host school groups into the market to be able to cultivate the next generation of good eaters who understand the contextual nature of their relationship to food by meeting not just the strawberries and the biodiversity of strawberries in the market, but meeting the strawberry farmers themselves and beginning to see their relationship to local food, to seasons, and to choice. And the important thing is children beginning to develop a sense of choice so that they become protagonists for their own food choices when the foods reach the school canteen. So it's this purposeful management of the markets, which has also provided, I think, the most replicable and exciting development, is a recognition that markets, changes in food policy, involve risk. And none of us like risk. So how do we mitigate that risk but through incentives? And the incentives of the markets themselves, of aggregating competitors into one place, actually mitigate the risk because it attracts a larger number of shoppers. You attract more shoppers and chefs through culinary instruction, cooking demonstrations. These are all part of an incentive strategy. And the most elegant and I think important incentive strategy with regards to food access is the development of conditional cash transfer programs, though it originally inspired and influenced by programs like Bolsa Família in Brazil, where you incentivize behavior change and reward people for making changes on their own. The integration of health incentives in markets is really one of the most, I think, profound changes that began at a municipal level, began with philanthropy and began with innovation in the markets, but has grown to change federal and national policies around rewarding, in particular, low-income shoppers to shift their purchasing practices where if they purchase X amount of produce with their own resources or with the cash transfer from the social safety net and doubling those dollars, doubling those euros, doubling those pounds, it helps to reward those vulnerable families to purchase healthier food in a setting where everyone is relearning how to eat and to cook. Now, these have grown to programs like the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentives Program, GusNIP in the United States, farmers market nutrition programs that target the elderly or women. But they also can be much softer programs like the Marketeer Club, where kids on their birthday receive vouchers to purchase anything they like so that they become protagonists in their food choices. These work in low-tech and high-tech settings and can be instituted in a very small basis. And what we find is that the more incentives that are introduced throughout the calendar year, throughout the seasons, you begin to create a culture of incentivizing change. Now, to look for more information on this, the World Farmers Market Coalition has produced a really extensive, up-to-date report about the scale, the capacity, and the nature of farmers markets from Australia to Ghana. And that can be found online. The Market Cities website with its reports of how markets have responded during the pandemic. I'm working closely with FAO in Bangladesh, and we're seeing a rise of new farmers markets as well as a retooling of the wet markets. And of course, the gold standard of markets that are particularly interested in the clarity and purity of products from field to fork would be Slow Foods Earth markets. And all of these can be found online. And if you have difficulty finding them, you can always contact me. Think like pirates. So I'll stop there.
Thanks so much, Richard. That was really great. And I want to recognize what you recognized in your remarks, that the agility of farmers markets over the last 20 months has been amazing, and they deserve a lot of support and recognition for that. They were heroes and heroines providing food when a lot of places were experiencing supply chain disruption. So that agility and the ability to pivot are really things that should be more talked about. And I'm so excited, Richard, about the World Farmers Market Coalition and this idea of serving farmers, eaters, and communities to really establish a triple bottom line. And even though Richard is one of my favorite people on the planet, he went over by about 4 minutes. So I'm going to ask the rest of our panelists to keep it to 7 minutes, please, so that we can finish on time. Thanks again, Richard. We'll now turn to Montserrat, who I'm so glad is with us from the Barcelona City Council, where she heads market and trade. So, Montserrat, Richard mentioned the municipal wisdom of markets in Barcelona. I'm wondering, I know you have a presentation, but I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that as well, because I think that's such an important part of this conversation.
Bueno, ante todo, muy
First of all, good morning to everybody. And as you said, Barcelona has a lot of things when we talk about infrastructures and when we talk about markets. So to us, it is an honor and a pleasure to participate in this meeting. And as someone said, Barcelona has a very good retail market, and we also have a wholesale market, Mercabarna, and both the retail market and the wholesale markets work in a very coordinated way, and also trying to achieve these food that reaches everybody and is a sustainable one. So it's we are very proud to have this network of markets. We don't know any other city that has this type of network. So we are very proud to share our experience in infrastructures. We have a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, it's under the name of Álvaro. Well, in any case, while they load the PowerPoint, I would like to mention that we are going to explain, and we had to prepare the speech in order to do that. We're going to talk about the network of markets that we have in the municipality and the main project about sustainability. We call it the green markets, and we are going to talk about Mercabarna. We are going to talk about biomarket, and also the CIAP, which is also a center and infrastructure that was very recently created. So as I said, as a city, Barcelona, we are very proud of the model that we have generated in the past. And if we have 43 municipal markets, it's not by chance. It's because there has been a consensus, a social, political consensus, that markets contribute a lot to our city, reaching all the neighborhoods. And also we have, as I said, a very important network of markets. We are talking about 38 markets. Sometimes well, it depends on the building or the market, because sometimes in the same building we have different markets, so that's why the figure is sometimes different. So with more than 7,500 people working on them, so that creates a lot of employment and more than 68 million visits a year, people visiting these premises for their shopping. And 64% of the population in Barcelona says that they buy in a municipal market. And it is also very important to underline that 32% of the food sold in our city are sold through these municipal markets. And in the last years, the municipal markets have modernized the infrastructures, the stalls, the waste management, which is also very important, promoting new services. And like, for example, paying with credit card and selling different types of products, like semi-elaborated products, and also the covenants, very typical from the city of Barcelona. The municipal markets have their own body with the collaboration of the city council. Everybody is represented in this governance body, and also representatives from the salespeople. So we work together, all together, since the beginning. And also, the municipal market is a sustained proposal. We had a strategical plan that is going to finish in the 2025. So we are half the way, so to say, and we define the mission of these markets. They have to be the soul of the neighborhood so that the food reaches all the neighborhoods in the city. They are also a driver and they distribute food. And also another goal is sustainability. Since 2015, we consider these markets, these infrastructures as an important element that gives service to sustainability per se. So I'd like to underline that this is one of the main projects that we are deploying for sustainability. We call them the green markets. It is a project with the collaboration of the City Council of Barcelona through Álvaro, Porro, and this markets body, and also with all the guilds and the shopkeepers in the Federation of Municipal Markets. So together we have finished all these all the details of this program. So it is a program that has been co-created with the collaboration of everybody. And also it's a public-private partnership. So we need to boost the local economies that are sustainable, fight the climate emergency, and with three main goals. The first one is to position the markets thanks to the quality of their products, and also local products and the impact they have in the reduction of the carbon footprint and the reduction of the climate impact, and also to facilitate the visibility of local practices so that they are sustainable, so that the farmers can do a living out of their products and what they grow. And the main criteria of this green markets is that they need to sell this organic produce, and that has to be verified, and they have to be organic certified products, local products, also buying from small producers, and the products that are elaborated have to be made or prepared by the shopkeepers, and also the shellfish and the fish has to come from a local point. And this project that was launched in May has had a lot of success. And now, out of the 1,500 stalls that can offer these green markets, we have 570 shopkeepers that have joined us, and they already have their space in the stall of these green green markets. So let me remind you that we are going to hold a an event, the Market of Market, and we are going to explain all these. And in November, there's going to be a campaign for the citizens so that they know better this project and it can still move forward. So very briefly, I will be very brief, talking about Mercabarna. We have two projects that are very important. First one is Biomarket. Biomarket is a proposal of the City Council. We want to have a fair and sustainable model. It was launched on the 23rd of November, 2020. So the COVID pandemic has been in the way, but we still want to make this initiative, this biomarket initiative in the wholesale market. And the main goal is then to foster these products, because Spain is the main producer of organic products. But in Spain, the consumption per citizen of these organic product is very low, only 46 euros per citizen per year. And if we compare it to Denmark or Switzerland, which is 312 euros per citizen and per year. So we are moving forward. Apart from being the first producers of organic products, we also want to consume and raise awareness about our products, about these products. So biomarkets is a very important service. It is the main organic wholesale market with 2,500 square meters with local producers and local farmers with an investment of 5 million euros. Here you can see the details on the slide. And also, very briefly about the Food Reuse Center. It is another goal, another project from Mercabarna, this wholesale market we are working on. And it's going to start functioning very soon. We are going to we're going to reuse these foods, and it's going to use the funds of the Next Generation funds, and it's a good opportunity to be greener and in order to reuse food. Sometimes we don't know really how to do it in a practical way. It's going to be a project with a collaboration of different entities and institutions. And just to tell you a little bit about the local agri-food exchange center, the CIAP in Catalan. It is a very important project that wants to boost the short circuits and getting the production closer to the consumer. And we've been working very intensively with Unión de Pageses, with the trade union of the farmers, the farmer trade union. And we are boosting these distribution channels, and we are developing the citizen fabric, so to say. And we are doing a pilot project with 22 producers and 12 vendors, shopkeepers that join this project. And the idea is that we will be able to make it wider. It is a very new project, and we hope that we can share the results very, very soon, because I'm sure they are going to be very successful and interesting, both in quality and in quantity. We have many other projects of public of procurement, and but I cannot give you more details about them. I have to stop here. Thank you very much for your attention, and it's been a pleasure to share this commitment with all of you. Thank you.
Montserrat. I mean, there are clearly so many exciting projects going on around food infrastructure in Barcelona. I'm especially interested in the Food Reuse Center, and I want to thank you, Montserrat, and Álvaro for being leaders in making Barcelona really a truly sustainable food city. So now I want to turn to Andrea Magarini, the coordinator of of Milan Food Policy for the Milan City Council. And you know, I know Montserrat and you have a lot in common dealing with markets and the infrastructure that's needed. And I'm wondering what Milan is doing that's exciting. How can you compete with what's going on in Barcelona?
No, we don't compete, but we cooperate because we are the fourth market and they are the third. So, no, sorry, the first. Exactly. No. Joking apart, yeah, I'm very excited for this session, and because for the first time in the Global Forum of the MUFPP, we host the Wholesale Market Association session yesterday and today this one, and I think that is very, very useful for the cities of Milan Pact have this kind of debate, because when we speak about food policy, sometimes we think that the food policy started in 2015, right. But the food policy started from the Roman Empire, no? Mm-hmm. So the first food policy in the history is the cura nonnae of Rome, and all the connection with Egypt and Northern Africa, and was spreading of all of our food system infrastructure from a historical point of view, and in that period, and also in the medieval part, the city-region food system was very, very clear. So there are cities and the surrounding area that feed in the cities. And after everything changes and the global food system invests our cities. But we need to have in mind that our we are a part of this, our food journey, and we need to play a part in this long history. And then the European city, primarily the European, but in general terms also worldwide, I have in my mind the Tokyo fish market, that is a municipal system. The municipality started to define their local food system infrastructure, that are strategic infrastructure to maintain active the fluxes of our food system. And here in the photo you have the slide with the Birmingham wholesale fish market, that was started after the Second World War. And come back to Milan. I want to have a very brief presentation because I want to also have more time for the debate. But in Milan we have two kinds of infrastructure that we are managed under the control of the municipality, and both are managed by our municipal agency, two municipal agencies. One is School Canteens Municipal Agency that, as you can see, manage an infrastructure that is spreading all around the cities. So for about 600 of canteens, 26 cooking center, one that is the Red Cross, the biggest Red Cross, that is this space, and and here we produce 60,000 meals per day. With the food policy, we try to define, to improve within this existing infrastructure that was built in a period in which sustainability is not a mindset, but we try to exploit this infrastructure to reduce food waste in the entire system of production, to have this point as place in which the local farmers can be connected. Here we want to introduce the first set of electronics van for logistics of our school canteens. So we are trying to include in a pre-existing food system infrastructure new activities. And again, you can see this is a public and there is well spread all around the cities. Another kind of infrastructure, like here in Barcelona, is the Wholesale Market, another municipal agency. Again, not so sustainable, as you can see. Gray is the major color. But also here we are trying to innovate our food system, because here we launch also with our main partner, Caribou Foundation, a grant for charities that are saving the food losses. And this is just the first of a set of action that we want to plan in this space. Because here there are a lot of issues, of course, in the wholesale market, but also a lot of potentiality. And here we want to do a lot, also exploiting the European Recovery Fund. And so in the last summer was signed a deal in which we want to build within this wholesale market a cooking center for our school canteens. So we want to mix these two facilities and exploiting this potentiality, because we need to plan, we need to design for the first stages this plan, and we have a food policy. We want to build an infrastructure that is very connected with everything, our new mindset of food policy. So connected with the local farmers, have a space to stock the local food production, saving food waste, be energy saved for the production, and so on. And again, on the other hand, we have other private infrastructure. Private, we have in mind retailers and so on, but also some social actors, so everything concerning food aid. And during the COVID, we work a lot in all of these systems, and now we are managing a lot of relation with well-spread actors. And as you can see, there are different colors, so different players that are a single element of this system, but there are three big dots. These three big dots are the logistic hub of the Fund for the Most European Deprived that are stocking food aid and then spreading all around the cities. And also working with them, we noticed that their facilities are not able to manage the increasement of food aid that they need to share. And so also working with them, we are thinking a new kind of relation of a municipality. We are in the new thinking, with a new open debate with all of these actors. And we are trying to map all of these dots all around the city, because we want to have a more clear understanding of all of this system and to connect it with the social services, for instance, in this topic of food aid. And so we map all the food aid infrastructure, all the actors that are distributing food losses in Milan in the different neighborhoods, and all of the actors with social market and soup kitchen. And also at metropolitan scale, because the scale of the presentation until now was just at municipal scale. But we are in a metropolitan area, so we need to have this kind of narrative and also mindset, and we do already this exercise. We are in the early stage of this debate, and we want to share. We want to establish a debate also within the Milan Pact with cities that are working on the similar approach to infrastructure. It was just this, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Nice job, Andrea. Andrea is the only one who kept to 7 minutes, but a couple of things stand out for me that I think are important. One is that you're mixing infrastructure, you're exploiting what's already there, and I think that's a really fundamental part of making sure that infrastructure works. You're not reinventing the wheel. One thing that I'm really excited about is your focus on school canteens, because one of the most important things to come out of the UN Food Systems Summit is this coalition around school feeding programs, which are needed now more than ever because of the pandemic. So that's a really crucial part of what you're doing. So thank you again. It was really great to hear from you. I now want to turn to Henk Renting and Fruke Edema. I'm sorry, I messed up your name. Who are from the Netherlands.
Pronounce it after.
to both share their thoughts.
Frauke Idema.
Say again.
Frauke Idema.
Frauke Idema. Thank you. I'm good at mimicking.
We're getting there.
We will be a little more generous with your time because there are two of you, but I really appreciate you being here, so thank you.
Okay, can you put the presentation? Or? Yes, wonderful. Okay, so, well, first of all, many thanks for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here and to share experiences also from the Netherlands. So my name is Henk Renting. I work at Eres University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands as researcher on the topic of urban food systems, but I'm also advisor to the city of Almere, and I speak that role mostly now. And so this is a joint presentation together with Vrouwtje Idema, Food Policy Coordinator from the city of Ede, but also speaking on behalf of a new network of cities that just has been established last Saturday, a city deal which is working on sustainable and healthy food environments. And that is also the take that we want to take on the topic of food infrastructure. Food infrastructure is logistics, etc., but food infrastructure is also the environment in which people do their daily food habits and their daily consumption. So a number of things I want to go into, different ways in which cities can work on food infrastructure for feeding the cities, and especially healthy and sustainable food environment. I will say something about experience and examples from the city of Almere and the peculiar context of Almere, and then Vrouwtje will go into the city deal. And the overall message I think that we also want to say is that the importance to work on these multiple scale levels and the importance of multiple level approach to enable changes in towards more healthy and sustainable food environments. I want to start with this model. I won't don't be afraid, I don't want to go into all the details. This maybe some people know this as the rainbow model, and this model, it more or less what it shows is that maybe in the end we want to make changes at the individual level of food practices of consumers, citizens, but that often these individual food behaviors, they are very much routinized, and they are very much influenced by also the environment in which this consumption takes place. So, of course, the social environment is very important there, but also the physical environment, how are shops and marketplaces shaped. And so what is important that if you really want to change something on the individual level of behavior is that you in fact start working and also develop policies on this higher level. So different levels could be developing enabling physical food environments in which it becomes the normal choice, let's say, for people to eat healthy and sustainable, to integrate healthy and green food production in spatial planning, but also to work on strengthening a favorable socio-cultural food environment that enables and promotes people to make these choices. Coming back a bit also to the soft infrastructure that Richard also was talking about. And also enable a market environment where people can also have access to more healthy and sustainable products. One of the messages that I think we also want to bring across that maybe the poll said that cities can do a lot. Our experience is different in that sense, and that the competences of cities, especially to work on this topic, is really still very limited, and limited also by national legislation, lack of competences, and actually that is one of the reasons why the city deal was also established. Okay. Going a little bit into Almere, Almere has just established a food strategy this year. I won't go into all the details of the main lines, but I want to say a little bit about the peculiar context of Almere. The city of Almere is a new town, really next to Amsterdam in the polder in the middle of the Netherlands. But quite a big city already. It's now already the 8th city of the Netherlands with 220,000 inhabitants. And for 2030, it's expected to be the 5th city of the Netherlands. Also, thereby very high growth levels. In the last 15 years, it doubled its size, almost like African cities are doing, let's say. And also a very peculiar population. It's really it's a new time, but it's also a majority-minority city in the sense that 50% of the people who live in Almere don't have a Dutch original background and come from different nationalities and ethnic groups. So that gives a very specific challenges. Well, some examples of actions that, according to these different lines, the city of Almere is doing to enable healthy and sustainable food environment. One example of working on a physical environment is that the city of Almere is establishing a healthy and sustainable greenway or corridor, you might say, throughout the city, also in the context of the Floriade Expo that will be celebrated next year. So there will be a greenway from the main railway station to the Floriade Expo site, which on the one hand is for greening the city and making a green infrastructure in the city, but also in that corridor to create places where healthy food environments are promoted. On the one hand through, for example, pop-up shops for plant-based and healthy menus, but also working together with local entrepreneurs around that corridor. Now there's already a pilot with, I think, 25 entrepreneurs who will present their healthy plant-based diets on their menu. Some other examples are being developed in the context of Flevo Campus. Flevo Campus is an innovation center in which the city of Almere, my university, and also the province collaborate. And in fact, the whole idea of what Flevo Campus is trying to do is to develop healthy and sustainable alternatives, but also in an inclusive manner that suits to this peculiar setting of Almere. So that's very much working on social and market environment. And in fact, the idea that, well, you maybe recognize this figure, which is based on the donut. So the idea is to come to a food system which is within the limits of the ecological ceiling, and in that context work on different retail settings, let's say, where consumers do their consumption. The supermarket of the future, a public canteen of the future, also a toko, ethnic shop, let's say, of the future. Well, just two examples I want to give of projects in this. One is a project to try to bring more local foods in the supermarkets of the future. And then you should realize again this very peculiar context of Almere, a new town in a polder. So in fact there is not much tradition of local food and specialties, and also a very specific multi-ethnic community that do not normally respond so much to this market of local specialties, but have their own food culture. So in that context, a collaboration has been established with 14 local supermarkets to try to see how can we make, almost design, let's say collectively, local food that fits in this context. So with a local chef cook, two products have been developed. One is a local krupuk, which is an Indonesian specialty, but now it's made from local products, and the same with a kind of hummus type of spread. And so this is being tried out with tastings, etc., with the idea that this really might get into local products there. And one back. The last thing I want to mention, and then I hand over to Frauke, is the public canteen of the future. Well, maybe that's a strange thing for you, but in the Netherlands we don't have so much tradition with public canteens. And at the same time, it's also an issue in the Netherlands. The community kitchen was also mentioned as. So the challenge of this is also to see if we can develop a model or a kind of prototype that offers healthy and sustainable plant-based food, almost also like a kind of public service. And to do that also at the same time in a way which accelerates a change in collective behavior, so which supports also the plant-based and healthy narrative, but then in such a way that it also suits with the local food habits and the local food cultures, and well, really makes a change grounded in the Almere local context. Well, this is an example of what we do in Almere, but this is part of a bigger national network, and I'll hand over to Vrouwtje to say something more on that.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Do you
Out
want to
of...
switch seats?
Well, it will be quite a challenge.
Do you want to switch seats real quick?
So, we could change. So I won't look. I won't look at the right side. I will look at the left side because there are the slides. I'm really sorry for the audience. Okay, we can talk later on. Okay. So there we are. Well, my name indeed is Vrouwtje, which is quite hard to pronounce,
sorry,
but we leave it
Vrouwtje.
like that. No, no,
So
don't
sorry.
worry at all. So I'm happy to tell you something about a city deal. A few years ago, and I might have told something about it in another meeting as well. Well, as Dutch cities, we realized we have to work together because, well, we don't have that much capacity in our own city, communities, experience, things like that. And we also need to work together with national governments on issues related to food. So that was a, well, big consciousness, and in 2017 we started a city deal number 1. The theme of that city deal was called City Food on the Urban Agenda. The main goal of that city deal then was to accelerate the transition towards a healthy, sustainable food system. And, well, to make it very practical, we had to share knowledge. We had to get to know to each other as people, planners from city, policymakers. We had to get to know to each other. So you could say it's a kind of social infrastructure we had to build within the Netherlands itself, between cities and national governments. We also decided in that time we wanted to take part into the Milan Pact as Dutch cities, as an alliance, let's say it like that. We've got 5 slides left, so don't worry, we're almost there at the end. Well, let's say, I think the result of that first city deal, Food on the Urban Agenda, was that we really built a network. We really built an alliance. That's the first one. And the second result is that we put a team on a Dutch national political agenda, which is quite important. Before that, it was not really a team in the Netherlands itself. Now, also on national level, there is a food agenda. And, well, I think that's one of the results as an alliance, well, we've worked on for many years. In the meantime, well, Henk, you told us our cities are growing rather fast. Well, most of the Dutch cities, well, let's say bigger and middle-sized cities, do have a food strategy. So there is also a growing awareness and willing that we have to do something with that food environment, as much more people are going to live in the same environment. There was also a kind of willing, well, we've been talking about food for many years, we built a network, so now we have to practice what we preach. We really have to do something. So, the second city deal. And we just signed it last Saturday on World Food Day. You might have noticed that. And I think that is a very good start for, well, really working. You can see 8 cities. In the first city deal, we were with 11 cities, national government, Ministry of Health, Agriculture, Internal Affairs, etc. Well, most of the cities are still there. Quite a number of cities are really willing to join. So 8 will be in a very fast, I think we will grow very fast. And again, 3 departments on national level are partner. Not even only that, also other stakeholders, which are very important for us, joined this specific city deal. And this city deal has another theme. As Henk said, we will focus on the food environment. The reason is that, well, let's say it like that, on local level, we found out that the cities, we don't have that much legal instruments. So once when we, for example, fast food lanes, we can't stop them. We can't get them out of our cities. That's a problem on local level. So we need national government to do something about it. And that's what we want to do. We want to organize all kinds of pilots and experiments how to solve that problem. So the healthy food environment, that's a very important one for us. You can see the ambition. Well, the ambition is quite clear. And we will focus for this year on the physical food environment. That is a very important one. We will start with all kinds of pilots. And I will show you two. First, Rotterdam is one of the enjoying cities. The Korte Lijnbaan in Dutch. Korte Lijnbaan in Rotterdam, well, that is a real fast food lane. Maybe some of you have been in Rotterdam, maybe you've visited. It's really terrible. Once they're there, you can't get them away. And it is a challenge because, well, there is already a consolidation about how this environment should look like on city level. So this is, well, a big challenge. How could we stop those, or how could we change it step by step? Well, we know that on local level, even Rotterdam is a huge city, well, they can't do it. They have to work together. So we will pilot together with national government in order to experiment, in order to make new law, maybe, new legal instruments. That's the first one. Another pilot I really would like to share with you is, well, it's from my own city, of course, is something different, completely different. We will build in the few years a new railway station. And together with partners as the Dutch Railway Organization and big supermarkets, we will try to make a food railway station in a way that when you enter a railway station, you catch a train, well, you won't find a McDonald's, or, well, at least you will find a McDonald's, and also healthy shops with local products from the area, things like that. Maybe a pop-up shop with food starters. So that's what we really would try to reach. And part of this pilot is that we also want to change the area all around the railway station, because, well, there's also fast food, and it's a very bad message when, well, you have a beautiful railway station with all kind of fancy local food, and then you walk in the city itself and you see immediately the McDonald's again. So we take it as an integrated, we do it as an integrated approach. Okay. Well, we're in the end of our presentation. I would like to say about infrastructure some more. I think infrastructure is not only cities working together to experiment, to share knowledge, and together with national government. It's also, infrastructure is creating places to exchange experiences, each with their own focus point. And in that case, I would like to emphasize two food centra, let's say it like that. One in Almere, the Floriade, and one, the World Food Center in Ede, pretty soon to become, as you can see, 2022 and in 2023. Both are, well, let's say, food centra with their own ecosystem, infrastructure, and both places will contain innovation, places to live, to work, to experience food. And in the Netherlands itself, we make a kind of new infrastructure in building these places and also already connected so we could share. Infrastructure, in my opinion, is as well that we create finally a chain worldwide. So we could connect with SEMAS, for example, in Valencia, and other places to come, maybe in Montpellier, for example. And I think that would be really interesting. Then we talk about infrastructure with a social aspect, a physical aspect, and we share all kinds of ideas. So we don't do the same things, take each own entry point, and we share. That would be really nice, in my opinion. So on different level, I said something about infrastructure, and I would like to welcome you, finally, together with Henk, to invite you to the Netherlands next year and the year after that to visit our pretty little infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henk and Frauke. You went over time by so much that I can't even deal with it. But I think it's partly because you had to teach me how to pronounce your name. I want to mention a few things. One is I'm glad we keep coming back to Richard's thoughts on soft and social infrastructure, and I feel like that's becoming a thread throughout this conversation. Two, one thing is I think we're also really, we keep emphasizing this need for partnerships and breaking out of silos and finding unusual collaborators, both private and public, to do the kind of infrastructure needs that have to be met. One thing that Henk and Frauke both said is this idea of healthy food becoming the normal choice, normalizing it. And creating these healthy food environments. And I hope more of that comes up in the Q&A. And then the final thing that I'll mention is that I love that fast food free zone that you mentioned, Frauke, but I wonder, and maybe this will come up in Q&A, how that impacts low-income consumers. I'm just thinking of, the context of the United States where I live. Often that's all that's available to low-income folks, even though it's not healthy, but it's really what's available to them. So just a question to throw out there. But thank you both so much for your presentations. We'll now hear from Nicholas Yu, who's joining us virtually. He is the executive director of the Guangxiao Institute for Urban Innovation. So Nicholas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will try to keep to time.
Thank you.
Right. We have been talking a lot about soft infrastructure. This presentation is going to be on hard infrastructure, and hard infrastructure in the province of Guangdong and the city of Guangzhou. Just the context, the population of the province of Guangdong is 126 million. The population of the city is 13.6 million residents. The daily population in Guangzhou can reach 18 or 20 million. That includes people who are coming in from outside and working in Guangzhou, or people living but temporarily in Guangzhou. GDP per capita is about $20,000 US, and the Gini index is 0.465, which is just slightly better than the national Gini factor. All right, basically the Chinese diet is still very much based on rice, especially in southern China. So what I will be focusing my presentation on today is the rice, grain and oil storage and distribution system in China. Now, I'm not a food specialist, but what happened a few years ago was I was having dinner with some friends, and they told me what they were doing, and I was intrigued by it because I have heard of cities managing all kinds of markets for fresh food, for distribution, etc., but I've rarely hear of cities that manage grain. And so I delved a little bit more into it and visited several of the grain storage facilities. And what I was surprised to learn was that these were not just grain storage facilities. They are a grain and oil management system managed by the city. And basically what they do is they are empowered to buy grains internationally and nationally, as well as oil. They stock it. They also distribute it as a wholesaler, and they also regulate the pricing. So basically one of the unique aspects of this grain management system is that this city agency, which is an autonomous agency, much like the French system where you are a public enterprise, but you have to operate like a private operator. You're accountable for profits and losses. They, for example, use a cross-subsidy system in order to charge a little bit higher for premium rice and charge a little bit lower than market price for the rice that most of the common people need every day. Now, during the next 5-year plan, or the current 5-year plan, 2021 to 2025, the ambition of Guangdong province and the city of Guangzhou is to improve grain sourcing and production. This includes preserving agricultural land in and around the metropolitan areas and optimizing procurement. And this procurement optimization is carried out in conjunction with the Belt and Road Initiative. So it spans all of the countries that are involved in the Belt and Road Initiative. Strategic reserves and storage facilities, again, they want to digitize everything so that all of the storage and distribution systems throughout Guangdong province and Guangzhou city will be smart systems to monitor supply and demand. And also to, they've already started, but to extend the intelligent transport and distribution infrastructure for grains and oils. Now, this proved to be very useful during the pandemic, when all of a sudden a lot of supply chains were interrupted. And what happened was that cities all across China relied on these very decentralized grain and oil management systems to overcome one of the difficulties. Also, from time to time, there are tremendous fluctuations in pricing. And again, these grain storage and management systems are able to act as market regulators. The target by 2025 is to have local grain reserves of 10.75 million tons, an emergency supply capacity of 50,000 tons per day. Here again, this emergency supply system proved to be very, very important with recent flood. The flooding had totally interrupted national level supply chain. So again, it was the Chinese cities now want to reinforce the emergency supply capacity at the city and district level, warehousing capacity of 28 million tons, and that each city and county has no less than 10 days market supply of reserves of grain and oils. And for the four megacities, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Fushan, Dongguan, which together have 38 million inhabitants, at least a 15-day market supply of grain and oil. The emergency centers, as I said, are the ones that proved to be very useful during the recent floods we had all over southern China. The Green Passage is an interesting concept. These are a smart system that is set up for the transportation of grain and oil. So you have around the megacities 1 hour distribution time, around secondary cities, each secondary city to be able to reach within 3 hours, and rural areas within 5 hours. And also a local daily processing capacity of 200 tons of rice or 300 tons of wheat at the district level. And just so that you are aware, there are 11 districts in the city of Guangzhou. So basically, in summary, it's a full digital system that is being put into place to optimize procurement, both nationally and internationally. Also intelligent reserves for strategic purposes, but also for market regulation purposes. Cross subsidies to keep prices low for low-income groups. And the most recent addition to this current 5-year plan is full traceability for food safety and the monitoring of use of fertilizers and pesticides along the whole supply chain. And that monitoring is not just for local food procurement, rice purchases in China, but extends, as I said, to the entire Belt and Road country. So basically, a concerted effort to keep down the use of artificial fertilizers. That is basically my presentation. It's I think it's still rather unique to say that a city actually manages its grain and oil reserves. But this is in line with the decentralization policy of China all along, and to make cities and their especially metropolitan regions more and more responsible for all aspects of the economy. So thank you very much. That's 7 minutes and 15 seconds.
Good job. thank you so much, Nicholas, and I'm glad you touched on a lot of this hard technology, but what's really most interesting, hard infrastructure, what's really most interesting to me is the technology aspect of this and all of the sort of digitization and ability to make this decentralized and respond in emergency situations that will only become more common as climate change or the impacts of climate change increases. So thank you again. We will now turn to our final speaker, who is Hugo Rauhas, the Deputy Director of Food Supply at the Secretary of Economic Development for the City of Bogota, and he is joining us online. Hugo, the floor is yours when you're able. Hi, Hugo, the floor is yours. Hugo, can you hear us?
Buenos días, me confirman, están observando mi presentación.
Sí.
Bien, buenos días a todos, un saludo especial.
Good morning to everybody. Greetings from Colombia, from Bogota. Hello to everybody in virtually or there in the event in the city of Barcelona.
Bien. De manera muy rápida.
So very briefly, I'm going to use only these 7 minutes that were allocated to me. We're going to talk about this infrastructure and the regulation that we have in Bogota, the public and private infrastructure, this infrastructure that gives food support. It's a soft mobile one, and how this infrastructure helps to mitigate the food waste in the city. So first of all, about Bogota, with 8 million inhabitants, with 163 hectares, 74% is rural land, and this rural land has only 9,000 hectares that are used for farming. And it's important in order to understand what I'm going to say later, because it's not enough, and we depend on other regions for our food supply. So we are going to talk about this regulation, this framework. Bogota has a public policy as a tool to keep as regulation in food that wants to overcome the poverty, the malnutrition of the city, of the inhabitants in the city, and also 3 components: the human development, and the employability and competitiveness of the rural areas, and also to improve the malnutrition, and also a system that distributes food, that wants to strengthen the self-consumption, public procurement, good use of the water, reduce the food waste, and give support. And then finally, these healthy practices. And I'm going to focus on this because it is related to the different entities of this region in this public policy of food healthy. And also, we talk about the POT. It is the supply master plan of Colombia that wants to regulate this supply in the city, that guarantees these supply for all the citizens in order to reduce the inefficacies in the development of this plan, and wants to articulate and to establish these short circuits of commercialization so that the producer and the consumer get closer, reducing the number of intermediaries, and in order to have a healthier diet. That's why we need to have the participation of all the different stakeholders and also the consultation of all the stakeholders. So Bogota plays an important role in the supply, in the food supply, and we are the capital, and it has a production of 6.3 million tons per year, though 2.3 of million tons arrive to the city of Bogota. 90% goes through this main center of the city of supply, and 80% comes from the central region, because Bogota wants to focus on self-production. And through these regions, Tolima, and we call it the central region. So 80% comes from the central region of the city. So we also have to say that Bogota has a wholesale market. It is the most important one in the country, with 2.08 million of tons per year in 420,000 square meters, with 19 public markets focusing on traditional food. It is an infrastructure administered by the Institute of the Social Economy, and we have 62,000 square meters in this infrastructure, of this hard infrastructure. We also have a public logistic platform, and it has an important role in the organization of farmers and how they can include the digitalization. I will talk about digitalization further on. And also, this is a private infrastructure for the supply. This infrastructure with a high density of neighborhood shops, 83 shops per square kilometers. And in Bogota, we have more than 40,000 shops, retail shops, fruits, vegetables, butchers, bakeries, and so on. And 52% of the sales are done through this neighborhood shop. So they develop an important role in the supply, in the private supply of the households. And this guarantees the supply of the city. And also we also have these retail markets, municipal ones. We have 9. And it's an infrastructure of 71,000 square meters that guarantees also the supply, and is located in the different neighborhoods of the municipality. In Bogota, we have 20 regions, and in one of these regions, there is an important municipal market, both public and private, and also these small neighborhood shops that guarantee the food supply of all the citizens. And talking about the infrastructure for the food health, this support that is developed through the Secretary of Social Integration and the Secretary of Education. So especially the Education Secretary, there are 403 public institutions that give support to students, and with rations for more than 750,000 students during the pandemic. There were approximately 10 million vouchers that were distributed, And this was organized by the Secretary of Education and with the help of the Secretary of Social Integration, with these food support to the vulnerable population, with these vouchers or food boxes or soup kitchens, as other speakers said. So these infrastructures that we have in fostering homes and in gardens and parks, we giving service to thousands of people. So this shows the importance of this food supply, food support for the population, and it is also very important in order to guarantee the food healthy of the population in these degrees of vulnerability. So we need to talk about this mobile infrastructure, this soft infrastructure, and these are the local farmers, the local markets, trying to connect the producer with the consumer in order to foster this sustainability and this proximity done in different regions of the city, with more than 200 markets with an amount of 700,000 euros of food being sold, with 782 of people working in this farmers market with different modalities. One is presential in parks or gardens or squares of the cities, trying to reach all the citizens and giving them and supplying them with healthy food. And during the pandemic, we wanted to virtualize, so to say, these face-to-face markets, these street markets. So we included this platform, this digital platform. And during the peak of the pandemic, we developed an app, and we could supply approximately 21,000 products delivered with an amount of $5 million in sales. And this way, the local farmers got into the digital world, and this gave them another opportunity to get to sell their products without intermediaries. So through this infrastructure, we've been able to reach to these different places, and it's not easy to reach them. And this way, our producers have like a window shop. They can sell the products directly. And this leads us to this mitigation of the food waste in the city, and how in Colombia food is waste, approximately 9.7 million tons per year. So 6.2 would be losses and 3.5 would be waste. And Bogota wants to mitigate this food waste because this accounts for 1 million tons per year. So we have developed different strategies in order to guarantee the supply chains through this infrastructure, how to develop these activities in order to reduce the food waste and the food loss. And we link the different stakeholders in production, commercialization, and logistics so that we can really mitigate this food loss and food waste. And this would be all the infrastructure. And I want to stick to the 7 minutes, and I want to talk about the different modalities of infrastructure that the city has. And all these want to put together the producer, the end consumer, with giving them a fair price, both for the producer and for the consumer, and also taking into account that the food has to be healthy in our framework for Bogota, and this has been a benchmark at national level. And we also have at a state level another law in order to reduce the losses and the waste, and we include it in the framework to develop the cities of the 21st century. So this was all we wanted to share with you. Thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions.
Gracias, Hugo. So we've come to the end of our event, so I will hold my remarks. I want to leave you all to do your own Q&A, unfortunately, because I have to run and moderate another panel. But I want to thank all of the panelists. You've been extraordinary. I've learned so much. So let's give them another round of applause, please. And I'm sure many of the speakers will be at lunch and the breaks and dinner tonight, so you can catch up with them then if you don't have time now. But thank you all again.